Aldebaran's real identity was revealed in Arc 9. Well, sorta, not really, maybe maybe a little bit. It's complicated. Right at the end of Arc 9, Aldebaran's real name has been revealed. Natsuki Riegel. Well, that's sort of a loaded name, isn't it? Not only having the same family name as Subaru, but also being the exact same name as Subaru's son from Rem If. I like to think that I am known for all things Aldebaran here in the ReZero community, so naturally a lot of people came and asked me, what do you think is going on here? Well, I don't know. When I first got spoiled about his real name because of some dumbass submitting it to my popularity poll, I was like, oh, I won! He's not Subaru! I've been making Aldebaran videos for a while now, in which I posit that he is absolutely not Natsuki Subaru, and I ended up entirely correct. Now, though, we're shifting the goalpost from Al equals Subaru to Al equals Subaru's son. And much like Al equals Subaru, I simply do not buy the pieces of evidence given. I don't intend to use my complete home run of Al doesn't equal Subaru here as a cudgel to disprove others, because to be frank, Al doesn't equal Subaru's son is not something I'm nearly as confident in as I was with Al doesn't equal Subaru. Additionally, just because I got one thing right, well actually I got a lot of things right about Aldebaran, but I digress. But even if I got everything 100% right all the time, there's always the chance to be wrong, and that's really not something that you should lose sight of, especially in a series as confusing and convoluted as ReZero. In this video, I'm going to posit a new theory. Kinda. Well, most of my older stuff on Aldebaran still holds up. The new part is that I do not believe that Aldebaran is Natsuki Subaru's son, nor do I think he is actually related to him whatsoever. Tape is clearly leading us to believe that Subaru is one of the parents that Aldebaran keeps referring to when he talks very negatively about his experiences growing up, or a face that a kid would know very well. I think these things are mostly misdirections though, just like all of the supposed references to Aldebaran being Subaru. Well, if Aldebaran isn't Subaru's son, who is he? Maybe just a guy? I don't know, man. There are a lot of characters that aren't Subaru's biological son. Okay, that's being a little bit cheeky. I could discuss who I think Aldebaran is at the end of the video. First, let me posit some reasons why I think they are completely unrelated. Then address a couple of arguments people make as to why they are related. First things first, and in my opinion this is a smoking gun. This was one of these smoking guns that was crucial towards disproving Al equals Subaru, and is just as powerful here as it was there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. These silly green fucks are the most powerful representation of Aldebaran's previous life that we have ever gotten, considering how he doesn't talk about his life before being 18 all that much. For those unfamiliar, when hearing about the shinobi or ninjas while infantilized in Arc 7, Subaru and Aldebaran both come to two different conclusions at the same time. Subaru thinks of Naruto, and considering he's a guy who had video rental cars in his wallet, probably grew up during the same period I did, when Naruto was airing in the early 2000s. Kid Subaru's base point when thinking about shinobi is Naruto. That's the crux of my point. Aldebaran, however, does not think of Naruto. He thinks of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Aldebaran claims that he was isekai'd at the same age as Subaru, and considering how much older he is, would probably map out to him being around 10 years old when the first TMNT show started airing, or around the early 90s. Subaru himself, in his own narration, states that he wasn't particularly familiar with TMNT, which means Aldebaran had them become a focal point of what a ninja is, completely independent of Subaru. One could argue that Subaru taught him all about TMNT, but again, Subaru's not very familiar with them, so why would that be? Is it like fucking Echidna? Is Echidna teaching Aldebaran about green dudes in the sewer? I wouldn't assume so. She's stuck to only business, okay? No pleasure. Death only for him. This marks a fundamental generational difference between Subaru and Aldebaran. Another difference is this one idiom that they discuss, also around the same time. Aldebaran remarks about the Giant's Thrust. He says it's a phrase from his hometown, however, for the first time, Subaru is completely unaware of it. He is completely unaware of a Japanese idiom that Aldebaran is using. Unfortunately, there isn't much more to say than that, because this isn't actually a real idiom from Japan, and even Japanese fans were asking what the hell Aldebaran was talking about, but it does mark another fundamental difference between the two of them again. Aldebaran thinks Giant's Thrust is a known Japanese idiom, but Subaru had never heard of it before. That's all, I guess. If Aldebaran were to be Subaru's son, I think there are two pretty obvious qualifiers for who Aldebaran's mom could be: Emilia and Rem. There are two glaringly obvious issues here, besides the fact that Subaru could never hit. The first is that Emilia is a half-elf. The second is that Rem is an Oni. Aldebaran does not share any seeming resemblance to Emilia, not hair color, not elf features, and he seems to already have some age-related issues at the age of 40, so he probably did not inherit the, the insanely long lifespan of an elf. Of course, Aldebaran would only be quarter elf, so maybe some aspects wouldn't be inherited at this point, but to my knowledge, we haven't even seen a quarter elf ever, so we don't really have a yardstick to judge. Admittedly, Aldebaran does seemingly have some relationship with Amelia given his reactions to her, but for me personally, nothing that really screams, "You're my mom." Now, some people are supposing that Aldebaran is the exact same Natsuki Riegel from Rem If. For Rem, Aldebaran would be a half Oni. Yet Aldebaran never once relied on the Oni powers that he would have, as evidenced by the Riegel that exists in the Rem If being able to do the exact same thing. Aldebaran is also not blue, surprisingly. More importantly, unlike Amelia, Aldebaran also seemingly has no real relationship with Rem, given his reactions to her very existence being one of surprise that she's even alive, and the crux of his plan with Roy being to vomit up Rem because it wouldn't impact him that much because they don't really know each other. So I would say the arguments for Aldebaran not being Rem's son to be stronger than Amelia's, but I still think both aren't exactly likely. And what, do you want me to believe that Subaru had a child with a different woman? I don't think so. There is an elephant in the room that none of you know about, but out of fairness I will address it. If Aldebaran was half or quarter demi-human, he would not be the first person to ever show zero traits of being mixed. Doltaro's daughter, despite being half demi-human, looks completely human. This, however, seems to be the only case in the story so far, the exception, not the rule, so I'm not going to take it too seriously into consideration at the moment, but, we should at least keep it in mind. Now, the elephant in the room here is Natsuki Riegel. That is very obviously Subaru's family name, and I have thoughts on why that is, but we can get to that later. Let's focus on Riegel in particular right now. This is the main reason why people think that Aldebaran is Subaru's son, for obvious reasons. This little guy is also named Riegel. However, you will also notice this little one, Subaru's daughter in Rem If. Her name is Spica. Sound familiar? Unfortunately, it does. Spica exists in ReZero and is not Subaru's actual daughter, even though, you might be able to look at them and think, oh look, it's father and daughter. Not actually his daughter. So now that we have Riegel, why is the opposite immediately assumed to be true? If you want to ask what I think personally is going on here with the Riegel name, I think Tape is fucking trolling. He's always fucking trolling, to the point that it's kind of annoying sometimes. Tape very intentionally name-dropped Natsuki Riegel at the very end of Arc 9 before fridging, or rather orbing, Aldebaran and moving on. There's a reason he didn't explicitly say that Riegel is Subaru's son, because he wants you to think that for yourself, and sit on it for years and years and years. This is the exact same MO that Tape was operating under for a literal decade with Al equals Subaru, constantly bringing up ways in which Aldebaran is the exact same as Subaru without ever going the extra mile to explicitly confirm it, letting you sit on it for years and years before finally going, nah, he's not Subaru. He's a secret third thing. So I'm led to believe the exact same is true for Natsuki Riegel. He didn't explicitly confirm that he's his son. He knows about Rem If. He fucking wrote it. He wants you to form that connection on your own and think about it because he's probably going to subvert it later, just like Al equals Subaru. Al is not Subaru's son, it's a secret third thing. I also think quite a powerful argument to make that potentially disproves that Aldebaran is Subaru's son is the concept of the door. Like the authority, not the thing in your house. It was said that you have to have an exceptionally close connection with a witch factor holder to open your door to an authority. It completely changes our understanding of how authorities can manifest. This is explicitly what we're told for how Aldebaran has an authority to begin with, so my theory about him holding envy was unfortunately shot dead outside of Philadelphia. The obvious implication in the context of Al equals Subaru's son is that Al's door to an authority was ajar because Natsuki Subaru, who probably holds envy, is his dad. And in the context of ReZero, that is a close connection. Except, there's just one small issue with this idea: infantilization. Frequent channel viewers know that I have spent literal years racking my brain over why Aldebaran lost his authority when turned into a child. I sincerely could never figure it the fuck out. However, with the door lore, we now know that a close connection is required. Aldebaran being infantilized would not stop being Subaru's son if that were true. If anything, he will be closer to the point that he will be closest with his dad, meaning his door should not have shut, implying that his door opened at a later point in his life. You might point out this instance here of Echidna including Aldebaran amongst people who have had their door ajar upon birth. However, this is yet another Tapeism. He continually refers to Aldebaran's birth not as Natsuki Riegel's birth, but as the birth of the Aldebaran identity, implying that Aldebaran's door was ajar upon being born as Aldebaran, not as Riegel. Could Subaru still be the reason his door is ajar? It's possible. Could it be someone else? I wouldn't rule it out. Those are some of the arguments as to why I do not think Aldebaran is literally Subaru's son. And I do think that the argument that Aldebaran lost his authority because his door closed as a child is pretty strong. References to media before Subaru's time, idioms that Subaru was not familiar with, no striking resemblance to either of the women that Subaru would have a child with, typical Tapeisms with how he writes plot twists or reveals, the name being a misleading factor, and the ever-elusive meaning of the authority door. Well, who do I think Aldebaran is? That's a totally different question, and I partially answered that in an older video, but I can update parts of it here. I believe that Aldebaran is a poor fucking soul who has experienced many timelines. I talk about this more in my ranking ReZero theories video, but the Great Reset, and no, not the Arc 9 one, my theory name got taken, allowed Aldebaran to see many altering timelines of the ReZero world, which gave him knowledge about the present that he should not have by any means. And he wouldn't have gained this knowledge from Echidna because it was not assumed that he would lose against Satella and end up in the future. I'm not personally sure how else to interpret the messaging of Aldebaran saw the world destroyed and remade when he was in the orb, especially with the light novel Arc 1 comments from Subaru saying that it would be easier to destroy and remake the world than it is to reset time. For whatever reason, Echidna took Aldebaran under her wing and groomed him to be like Natsuki Subaru. This is also evidenced by a form he takes in the Castle of Dreams, a world where you can appear however you want. And that's a fake Subaru. Notably, however, we never see his hair or his face, likely because he represents how Aldebaran could never be him, just like how Echidna's face is different in the Castle of Dreams than her real face. I'm not sure specifically what lengths Echidna went to create a fake Subaru. I imagine she used her authority to attempt to do so, however. But Aldebaran could never be anybody but himself, which is what ends up in his loss against Satella. I believe Echidna wanted Aldebaran to kill Satella, because perhaps by killing Satella, Echidna could force a hard reset or something of that nature, since I am of the opinion that Satella cannot actually die, which is why she was sealed. Regarding the name Natsuki Riegel, I have a theory that I'm not particularly confident in, but I'll give it anyway. Perhaps in one of the many timelines Aldebaran had experienced, Subaru had more or less adopted him. In this same arc, we learn Aldebaran's name. We also learn of the concept of adoption or marriage, changing your name down to your soul or whatever, a key element in the battle against Roy Alfred. This could explain how Aldebaran knows Natsuki Subaru through and through. In an alternate timeline, they genuinely knew each other like brothers, and to free him from the curse of the name Aldebaran, Subaru dubbed him with his own star name. It's not a perfect theory, it's not bulletproof, but this is how I'll think about Aldebaran going forward. If you're going to ask why Aldebaran's door was open, well, I think it's more than likely that Subaru is not the one that opened Aldebaran's door. Who was it? Your guess is as good as mine. Echidna, Satella, I don't know. So that is why I do not believe Aldebaran is literally Natsuki Subaru's son, and these are my ideas as to who Aldebaran actually is. Some guy who has experienced ReZero quite a few times. It's just something to think about. If my theory on Aldebaran being an adopted sibling does not work out, well, I'm not really going to be surprised. Personally speaking, I think that Aldebaran being quite literally related to Subaru makes the world that much smaller, which is a similar argument I made against Al equals Subaru, but not as severe. The Natsuki family bloodline will be a little too important in this world for my liking, but still, it's better than Al equals Subaru, and I won in that regard, so fuck everyone who doubted me in the comments. That's all. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe for more. You can also check the description down below to become a member, which gives you benefits like early videos, membership badges, and cool custom emotes. You can join the Discord where we talk about ReZero, Kagurabachi, Jujutsu Kaisen, and all kind of stuff. Additionally, you can go to the channel store and pick up some awesome stickers made by our channel artist, so you can carry the power of Graphia with you on your water bottle. That's about it though. Thank you for watching. See ya.